Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. On an autumn afternoon, as she walked along the tree-lined street painted golden, Emily Harrison held her son Noah's small hand tightly. Noah had just turned 5, and while he usually talked excitedly about his kindergarten adventures, today he had been silent the entire time. "What did you play today?" Even when Emily gently asked, Noah only nodded slightly without saying a word. Emily's heart grew heavy seeing the change in her son, who used to run up to her energetically saying, "Mommy, look, look." When they arrived home, they could hear sounds of dinner preparation coming from the kitchen. Her mother-in-law Margaret had come to help as usual. Margaret was a former nurse, and for the past 6 months since her son Michael had been transferred to New York for work, she visited Emily's house 3 or 4 times a week, often staying overnight from Friday evening through Monday morning. "Welcome home, Emily." "Noah, it's Grandma," Margaret said, turning around with a warm smile filled with motherly kindness. However, when Noah saw Margaret, he somehow hid behind Emily. "Oh my, you're being shy today," Margaret said with a wry smile, turning her gaze to Emily. "Noah seems to have become a bit more reserved lately. I wonder if something happened at kindergarten." Emily shook her head with a troubled expression. "I haven't heard anything specific from his teacher. But it's true that he doesn't talk as much as he used to. Boys sometimes become quiet during their growth process. As a nurse, I've seen many children, and this might just be temporary." Margaret's words carried professional conviction. At dinner time, the 3 of them sat around the table. Margaret's elaborate cooking was laid out before them. Emily said with gratitude, "Margaret, you're such a tremendous help. Supporting us like this while Michael is away. We're family, of course. Besides, spending time with Noah is precious time for me too," Margaret said, gently stroking Noah's head. At that moment, Emily didn't miss how Noah's body tensed up slightly. Emily worked part-time as a librarian at the local library. When Michael's job transfer and temporary separation were decided, she had considered moving with him, but thinking about Noah's friendships at kindergarten and her own work, they had decided to live apart for a while. Michael, who worked for an IT company, talked with his family via video call every night, but recently Noah had been appearing in front of the camera less and less. "I don't want to worry Michael, so I need to stay strong," Emily thought to herself while watching Noah continue eating in silence. That night, after putting Noah to bed, Emily was having tea with Margaret in the living room. "Margaret, do you think I should take Noah to see a pediatrician?" "Well, it might be good to have him checked just to be safe. But please don't worry too much. Children are sensitive, so they sometimes pick up on their mother's anxiety." Margaret's advice was apt, and Emily felt somewhat reassured. Outside the window, lights were twinkling here and there in the neighboring houses. Linda, a nurse who lived across the street, worked many night shifts, and even when they met during the day, they only exchanged light greetings. In this quiet residential area, Margaret was the only person Emily could rely on. "Shall I stay over tomorrow night too? Let me support you a little more, including taking care of Noah," Margaret offered, and Emily was genuinely grateful. It felt like her anxiety and loneliness of raising a child alone might ease, even just a little. The next morning, Emily finished her work at the library and went to pick up Noah from kindergarten. The expression on his teacher Sarah's face, who usually greeted them brightly, seemed somewhat clouded today. "Emily, do you have a moment?" Teacher Sarah waited for the other parents to leave before approaching Emily. "I'd like to talk to you about Noah." Anxiety shot through Emily's chest. "Is something wrong?" "Actually, for about 2 weeks now, Noah has completely stopped talking. He used to play energetically with his friends and talk a lot, but now when we ask him questions, he only shakes or nods his head." Teacher Sarah's voice was tinged with concern. "Have there been any changes at home?" Emily tried to organize recent events in her mind. It's been 6 months since my husband started his work assignment, but there haven't been any particularly big changes, except that my mother-in-law has been coming to help more often. I see. Environmental changes can be a significant source of stress for children. I recommend consulting with a pediatrician. Teacher Sarah smiled gently, but her eyes held deep concern. On the drive home, Emily looked at Noah through the rearview mirror. Her son sat in his car seat, gazing out the window, but his expression held a seriousness that didn't match his age. Noah, what did you play today? Even when Emily spoke to him, Noah didn't even turn around. When they arrived home, Margaret was again preparing dinner. Welcome home. You must be tired today too, Margaret said, turning around. Perhaps reading Emily's expression, she asked, did something happen? The kindergarten teacher told me that Noah has completely stopped talking. We might need to see a pediatrician, Emily explained, and Margaret furrowed her brow with concern. That is worrying. But I'm sure it's just temporary. Boys sometimes go through periods like this, Margaret said, turning to Noah and kneeling down to meet his eye level. Noah, it's Grandma. Did something unpleasant happen? Noah stared at Margaret but again didn't answer. Instead, he took a small step backward and clung to Emily's leg. The next day, Emily took Noah to see a pediatrician. Dr. Johnson was an experienced pediatrician who examined Noah carefully. After using a stethoscope, checking his throat, and testing his reflexes, he sat down with Emily. Physically, he's completely healthy. His development is age-appropriate and there are no problems, Dr. Johnson explained in a calm tone. However, it's not uncommon for children to become mute due to psychological stress. Have there been any recent changes in the home environment? Emily explained about her husband's work assignment and mentioned that her mother-in-law had been coming to help frequently. Having family support is a good thing. However, any change can be stressful for children. Let's observe him for a while, and if there's no improvement, we can consider consulting a child psychologist. That night during their video call, Michael was shocked by Noah's condition. Even when he waved at the screen, Noah remained expressionless. Before, he used to say sweetly, "Daddy, come home soon," but now he wouldn't even look at the screen. What's wrong, Noah? It's Daddy, Michael's voice trembled with anxiety. Emily, is he really okay? Maybe I should come home right away. The doctor said he's physically healthy. I'm sure he's just confused by the environmental changes. Emily tried to reassure her husband, but she couldn't hide her own anxiety. After the call ended, Margaret appeared in the living room. Michael must have been worried. But I'll support you more, so it'll be fine. Starting next week, let me stay a little longer. That would be helpful, but I'm burdening you too much, Margaret, Emily said apologetically, but Margaret shook her head. We're family, of course. Besides, Noah is my precious grandson. I must protect this child no matter what. Margaret's words carried strong determination. That weekend, Margaret stayed over from Friday evening. On Saturday morning, when Emily woke up late and went to the kitchen, Margaret and Noah were eating breakfast. Good morning, Emily. Did you sleep well? Thank you. How was Noah? Emily asked, and Margaret smiled. He was a very good boy. Right, Noah? When Margaret spoke to him, Noah nodded slightly. However, Emily somehow found her son's expression unnatural. It wasn't his usual innocent smile, but a tense look, as if he were enduring something. On Sunday night, before Margaret went home, the three of them were watching TV in the living room. Even though a children's anime was playing, Noah wasn't watching the screen but had his hands folded in his lap. When Emily said, "This is fun, isn't it, Noah?" her son didn't respond. Does he wake up in the middle of the night recently? Margaret suddenly asked. Children sometimes cry at night, don't they? No, Noah sleeps soundly through the night. He doesn't cry at all, Emily answered, and Margaret showed a slightly surprised expression. I see. That's good then, Margaret said while somehow looking at Noah with meaningful eyes. On Monday morning, after Margaret had gone home, Emily was alone with Noah. Noah, did you have fun with Grandma? When Emily asked gently, Noah looked directly into his mother's eyes for the first time. His pupils seemed to hold an emotion resembling fear. However, Noah ultimately said nothing. He just hugged Emily tightly, and she could feel him trembling slightly. Tuesday night, Emily was cleaning up the kitchen by herself. She had put Noah to bed early, and Margaret had returned to her own home tonight. In the silence of the house, the doorbell suddenly rang. Looking at the clock, it was past 9 o'clock. It was unusual to have visitors at this time. Looking through the peephole, she saw Linda, her neighbor from across the street. They had only had greeting-level interactions until now. Emily opened the door with some hesitation. I'm sorry for coming so late, Emily. Linda's expression was a mix of confusion and concern. I have something I'd like to discuss with you. Please, come in. Emily led Linda to the living room and made coffee. Linda sat uncertainly on the edge of the sofa, holding the cup with both hands. Actually, Linda seemed to hesitate about speaking up. I've been hearing your son crying at night, and I'm worried about him. Emily frowned. Crying? But Noah sleeps soundly through the night. He doesn't cry at all. I work many night shifts, so I'm often awake in the middle of the night. That's how I noticed, for about 2 weeks now, every night around 2 a.m., I hear voices coming from your son's room. Linda's voice grew quieter. Screaming, stop it. Emily's heart began beating rapidly. Screaming. Are you sure it's Noah's voice? It's a child's voice. And it sounds very frightened. Linda set her cup on the table and looked into Emily's eyes. At first I thought he might be having nightmares, but it happens every single night. And I also hear an adult's voice. An adult's voice. Emily's mouth went dry. A woman's voice. I can't make out what she's saying, but it sounds like she's speaking very quietly, Linda continued reluctantly. Emily, could it be that your son is being frightened by someone? Emily stood up and paced around the living room. Her mind was in turmoil. But I haven't heard anything. Noah's room is right next to my bedroom. Perhaps it happens when you're sleeping deeply. As a nurse, I can tell you that when a child is frightened and crying at the same time every night, it could indicate some kind of trauma. Linda's words weighed heavily on Emily's heart. Noah's recent changes, his silence at kindergarten, and the fear-like expression he sometimes showed, everything seemed to be connecting. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for telling me, Emily said in a shaking voice. I'll check tonight. After Linda left, Emily sat alone in the living room. The clock showed 10 p.m. She had just put Noah to bed at 8:30. There were still 4 hours until 2 a.m. Emily went to her bedroom and lay down on the bed, but there was no way she could sleep. Linda's words kept racing through her mind. The screaming, stop it. A woman's voice. Every night around 2 a.m. And Noah's changes. At 1:30 a.m., Emily quietly got up from bed. She opened the door slightly and stepped into the hallway. She listened carefully outside Noah's room, but could only hear regular breathing sounds. Emily returned to her room and waited with the door slightly open. At 2:05 a.m., she heard a faint sound. Footsteps. Someone was walking down the hallway. Emily's heart began pounding violently. The sound was definitely heading toward Noah's room. Emily held her breath and peered through the crack in the door. In the dim light of the hallway, she could see a silhouette. It was a woman's silhouette. She could see the figure placing a hand on Noah's door. The door opened slowly. At that moment, Emily gasped. Standing there was Margaret. Emily was confused. Margaret was supposed to have gone home tonight. Why was she here? And why was she trying to enter Noah's room at this hour? Margaret quietly entered Noah's room and closed the door. Emily took her smartphone with trembling hands and activated the recording app. She didn't know what was happening, but her instinct told her she needed to preserve evidence. From inside the room, she could faintly hear voices. It was Margaret's voice. However, it was completely different from her usual gentle tone. It had a cold, intimidating quality. "Noah, wake up," Margaret's voice could be heard through the wall. After a while, Noah's small voice could be heard. "Grandma?" "Yes, it's Grandma. But that woman is not your real mommy." Margaret's voice was low, with a hypnotic quality. Emily was stunned. That woman must be referring to herself. "Your real mommy is in heaven. That person is fake. A bad person trying to deceive you," Margaret's voice continued. "No," Noah's voice could be heard. Mommy is. "Be quiet," Margaret's voice suddenly became harsh. "Don't listen to that person. Don't talk to her. If you tell that person about tonight." "Stop it," Noah's voice was trembling. "Stop it, Grandma." Emily continued recording while crying. To think that her son had been experiencing such terror every night. And that Margaret, whom she had trusted, had been doing such cruel things to her son. "Be a good boy. That person is fake. Your real mommy is dead," Margaret's voice could be heard again. "If you tell anyone, that fake mommy will die too. Do you understand?" "Yes," Noah's voice was shaking and tearful. After about 30 minutes, Margaret came out of Noah's room. Emily quickly buried herself under the covers and pretended to sleep. She heard footsteps walking down the hallway and the front door closing quietly. Emily stopped the recording on her smartphone with trembling hands. Everything had been recorded. Margaret's terrifying words and Noah's tearful voice. Tomorrow, she would report this to the police. And contact Michael too. But now, she had to go to Noah. Emily quietly went to Noah's room. Her son was huddled under the blanket, trembling slightly. "Noah," Emily called gently, and Noah slowly raised his face. There were tear stains on his cheeks. "Mommy," Noah spoke for the first time in a long while. I'm scared." Emily hugged Noah tightly. "It's okay now. Mommy is here. You don't have to be scared anymore." The next morning, Emily greeted the day without having slept at all. Noah lay on the bed looking exhausted, but when his mother entered the room, he smiled slightly. The voice of her son calling her Mommy for the first time in so long lit a spark of hope in Emily's heart. "Let's skip kindergarten today," Emily gently stroked Noah's head. "Let's stay together." After breakfast, Emily listened to the recording data several times. Margaret's cold voice, Noah's tearful voice, and the terrifying threats, "Your real mommy is dead," and "The fake mommy will die too." Everything was clearly recorded. At 10 a.m., Emily called the local police station. "I'd like to report suspected child abuse." "Understood. We'll send an officer immediately." The operator's voice was professional and reassuring. Next she called Michael. Her husband was in a meeting at his company in New York and was surprised by Emily's urgent voice. "Emily, what's wrong? Your voice is shaking." "Come home right away, Michael. Something terrible has come to light about your mother." Emily briefly explained the previous night's events. Michael was speechless. Mother did that? That can't be right. There must be some mistake. I have a recording. I have evidence. Emily's voice was resolute. You have no idea how much Noah has been suffering. Your mother has been psychologically abusing our son. After a moment of silence, Michael said in a trembling voice, I'm coming home right now. I'll take the last flight tonight. Until then, absolutely do not let my mother in the house. At 11 a.m., the police child abuse specialist team arrived. Detective Sarah Wilson and child psychologist Dr. Leachin interviewed Emily and Noah. Could we listen to the recording? Detective Wilson said in a calm tone. Hearing Margaret's voice coming from the speaker, both professionals showed serious expressions. Especially at the parts, your real mommy is dead, and the fake mommy will die too, Dr. Chen frowned. This is typical psychological abuse, Dr. Chen explained to Emily. The perpetrator tries to control by confusing the child's perception of reality and instilling fear. Your son's silence was likely caused by this fear. Detective Wilson spoke gently with Noah. Though Noah was initially wary, he gradually began to open up. Noah, does Grandma sometimes come at night? Noah nodded slightly. She comes every night. After Mommy goes to sleep. What does Grandma say? That Mommy is fake, Noah's voice trembled. That the real Mommy is in heaven. That if I talk, Mommy will die. Dr. Chen intervened. Noah, that's not true. Your Mommy is real and loves you. What Grandma said was wrong. Noah showed a confused expression but gripped Emily's hand tightly. Mommy won't die. She won't die, Emily hugged her son while crying. Mommy will always be with Noah. Around 2 p.m., Margaret arrived unannounced. She appeared at the entrance saying, hello, brightly as usual, but when she saw the police officers and child psychologist in the living room, her expression froze. Has something happened? Margaret tried to hide her agitation, but her voice trembled slightly. Detective Wilson stood up. You are Margaret Harrison, correct? We'd like to speak with you regarding suspected child abuse. Child abuse? What are you talking about? Margaret showed a confused expression, but when Emily played the recording, her expression completely changed. Hearing her own voice coming from the speaker, Margaret turned pale. This isn't right. Last night, around 2 a.m., you broke into this house and psychologically abused your grandson Noah, Detective Wilson stated the facts matter-of-factly. We have evidence and testimony. Margaret collapsed into a chair and suddenly began crying. My real son, my eldest son David died when he was 3. 25 years ago. Emily was stunned. She had never once heard that Michael had an older brother. David had leukemia. I couldn't save him. Even though I was a nurse, I couldn't save my own son. Margaret's voice was filled with despair. Michael was born after that. But I could never give up on David. Dr. Chen asked calmly, so you tried to make Noah a replacement for David? When I first saw Noah, he looked exactly like David, Margaret continued through tears. The hair color, the shape of his eyes, even the way he laughed. I thought this was a chance God gave me. That David had come back. So you confused Noah by calling me a fake mother, Emily's voice shook with anger. Emily, you're a good mother. But Noah is really David. My lost son. Margaret's delusion was serious. So I thought I had to teach him the truth. Detective Wilson took out handcuffs. Margaret Harrison, you are under arrest for child abuse, illegal entry, and psychological intimidation. Margaret didn't resist. Noah, no, David. I'm sorry, she said, looking back at Noah as she was being led away. Grandma just loved you. Noah hid behind Emily, trembling slightly. "Mommy, I'm scared." "It's okay now, Noah," Emily hugged her son. "Grandma won't come anymore. Mommy will always protect you." That evening, Michael came home. His face, having come straight from the airport, was pale with fatigue and shock. After hearing a detailed explanation from his wife, he collapsed onto the sofa. "I had heard a little about my brother David when I was small. But I had no idea Mother was that sick." Michael held his head. "I should have noticed too. I should have taken Noah's changes more seriously." That night, the three of them had dinner together for the first time in a long while. Though Noah was initially cautious, he was happy about his father's return and gradually began to regain his words. "Daddy, Grandma won't come anymore?" Noah asked in a small voice. "She won't come anymore, Noah." Michael held his son on his lap. "Daddy and Mommy will protect you. You can feel safe." Noah showed a relieved expression and smiled slightly for the first time in a long while. The long nightmare was finally about to end. 1 week after Margaret's arrest, the Harrison family was gradually trying to regain their normal life. Michael submitted his resignation to his company and decided to transfer to a local IT company in Ohio. "I have no intention of living apart from my family anymore," his decision was firm. With Dr. Chen's referral, the family began counseling sessions twice a week. In the first session, Noah spoke about his experiences in a trembling voice. "Grandma said Mommy was fake. That if I talked, Mommy would die." Noah's small voice moved therapist Dr. Miller's heart. "I was scared, but where is the real Mommy?" "Noah, the Mommy right in front of you is real," Dr. Miller explained gently. "Grandma was sick and couldn't understand what was right. But your Mommy and Daddy are real and love you from the bottom of their hearts." Crying, Noah jumped into Emily's lap. "Mommy, real Mommy. I love you." 2 months later, Noah began talking actively at kindergarten too. Teacher Sarah was moved by his remarkable recovery. "He's like a different person. He might be even brighter than before." At home, nighttime reading became a new routine. Michael and Emily took turns sitting by Noah's bedside, reading him picture books. Noah sometimes murmured, "I feel safe because Mommy and Daddy are here," as he fell asleep. 3 months later at Christmas, neighbor Linda invited the family to dinner. Without Linda's courageous action, Noah might still be suffering today. That night, "I hesitated about speaking up," Linda confided to Emily. "But as a nurse, and as a human being, I couldn't stay silent. Without you, we don't know what would have happened to us." Emily bowed deeply. "Thank you so much." Margaret was diagnosed with severe pathological grief and delusional disorder following a psychiatric evaluation. The court issued a treatment order and restraining order from the family, and long-term treatment at a specialized hospital was decided. Michael had mixed feelings but accepted it, saying, "Both my mother's treatment and my family's safety are important." When spring came, Noah made many new friends and began inviting them over to play. Every time Emily heard her son's laughter, she felt that those dark days had ended. One night, Noah came to his parents in his pajamas. "Daddy, Mommy, thank you." "What are you thanking us for?" Michael asked, and Noah answered with a serious face. "For protecting me. For being my real daddy and mommy." Emily and Michael hugged their son from both sides. Outside the window, the lights in Linda's house glowed warmly. The three of them deeply understood that a real family wasn't just about blood relations, but about relationships where people could believe in each other, protect each other, and face the truth together. 6 months later in summer, the bright laughter of the Harrison family echoed through the Maplewood residential area. The sight of the family enjoying a barbecue in their yard gave hope to their neighbors too. Noah ran around energetically with his friends, occasionally calling out happily, "Mommy, look." That night, before going to bed, Noah said, "Mommy, I'm happy. Having my real daddy and mommy." Emily kissed her son's forehead. "Mommy is happy too, Noah. Let's stay together forever." Surrounded by the quiet night in Maplewood, the Harrison family's peaceful sleep began. Protected by true love.